Welcome everyone to the March 28th, 2024 Campus Research Computing Consortium special presentation on the National AI Research Resource, or NAIRR, with Katie Antypas, the director of the NSF's Office of Advanced Cyber Infrastructure. I'm going to go through a few welcome and logistics slides while folks are joining, and then I'll hand it over to Katie. So, have to do the advertisements. The Campus Research Computing Consortium, or CaRCC, is an organization that advances the frontiers of research by improving the effectiveness of the research, computing, and data profession, including their career development and visibility, and their ability to deliver services and resources to researchers. The heart and soul of CaRCC is the People Network, which is a year-round virtual conference with community-driven tracks based on roles people have, as well as a track for emerging centers. CaRCC also supports a variety of working and interest groups related to the RCD workforce and campus capabilities. This support comes by way of operational groups that provide logistics and engagement support, as well as the Chair's Leadership Group, where leaders of all the groups come together to drive the organization forward. CaRCC activities continue to be supported by the National Science Foundation, so thanks, Katie, through the RCD Nexus grant and by the many contributors from people in the RCD community. So if you haven't already, you should join the People Network via the link here on the slide or in the call doc, and that will guarantee you get notified about future opportunities and can take part in a variety of vibrant discussion topics. Next Tuesday, we're having our inaugural monthly welcome event where you can learn more, and the link to that's in the call doc, and you can also just go to the CaRCC website calendar. So lastly, CaRCC is an open, collaborative, and inclusive organization. If you have any questions about that and want to learn more, you can see our code of conduct or send one of us a note. And then lastly, some meeting requests. Please sign in on the call doc, linked in the chat that Tim's provided. And if you could please be sure to keep muted during the call unless you're intentionally trying to speak, and you can use chat or the call doc for questions, and we'll make sure Katie sees those. And with that, I want to let you know that Katie Antypas is here with us. She's the director of NSF's Office of Advanced Cyber Infrastructure. She's responsible for supporting and coordinating the development and deployment of advanced computing and data research infrastructure, tools, services, and training for the research and education community. Prior to joining NSF last July, Katie was at the National Energy Research Scientific Computing, NERSC, the center at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, for 17 years in a variety of roles, including the NERSC Division I can't speak today, NERSC Division Deputy Project Director for the Large-Scale High-Performance Computing Systems Acquisitions, Director of Hardware and Integration of the Exascale Computing Project, Data Department Head, and User Services Group Lead. Before that, she worked at the Flash Center of the University of Chicago on the Flash Code, which is a highly scalable parallel adaptive mesh refinement astrophysics application. She has a MS in computer science from University of Chicago and a bachelor's in physics from Wellesley College. Katie, we're grateful to have you here with us today. And I know a lot of people, oh my goodness, 260 people are here ready to hear about NAIRR. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Dana. So this is amazing. I knew I was going to come do a seminar for CaRCC, but I kind of thought it might be 40 people, not 260. So I'm really excited about the turnout. I have a set of slides, but then I want to really spend most of the time in Q&A, because that's where a lot of, I say the best questions have come up. I feel like I give about a NAIRR talk a day. This will be the second largest, actually. So anyway, I'm just going to go right in. I usually start by asking how many people have heard of the NAIRR and whether it's becoming a household name or not. As I say, it is a household name in my household now. But I don't know if I can quite do this with online and 200 odd people. So let's just jump in. So the NAIRR stands for the National AI Research Resource. Okay. And the vision for the NAIRR is a national infrastructure that connects the research and education communities to the necessary computing, data, model, software, training, and user support necessary to advance AI research in the country in a really responsible way. And so sometimes I'm asked why we need an NAIRR and why don't we have a lot of big computing in this country? Do we really need an NAIRR? But I think what's probably familiar to this crowd here is a lot of the resources that are necessary to even begin participating in AI innovation ecosystem here are increasingly concentrated into the hands of fewer players, our largest technology companies, maybe the most well-resourced institutes or universities. And so there are many contributors, there's many potential contributors who lack access and also maybe find these resources hard to navigate or hard to use. And I think what we know is that we urgently need the research community to be a part of the critical research that needed to advance AI in a trustworthy manner. And so we need to make sure that researchers that are investigating AI and using AI for the public good to address great societal challenges and problems, that these researchers also have access to resources. Now, what's also really important is that our students can gain access to these resources too, so we can train the next generation. And so with the NAIRR, the vision here is really to address some urgent national needs to spur innovation for the country, increase the diversity of talent in AI, improve overall capacity for AI R&D, and to advance trustworthy AI. And so what we're really looking to do is to facilitate national and coordinated access to these resources. Right now, we have thousands of universities that are each individually negotiating access to these systems and models and services. And we want to assure that the public interest is strongly represented in AI. So I want to provide a little bit of history here. Okay, where did this concept of the NAIRR come from? It I think originated back in 2019. I think Fei Li from Stanford was really conceived this notion of a national infrastructure. In the 2020 AI Initiative Act, that act congressionally mandated the formation of a NAIRR task force, and that task force was made up of 12 people, 4 from academia, 4 from government, 4 from industry, and they were charged with assessing the feasibility of this concept of a NAIRR, of a national infrastructure, and creating a roadmap. And so they worked for about 18 months. They published this report in the upper left about a year ago in January of 2023. And that described a pretty grand vision. And this report, if you have a chance to take a look at it, this report articulated a vision for a $2.6 billion initiative over 6 years, with the majority of that going to resource providers to provide access to these resources. I'll note now that no funding right now has been appropriated for the NAIRR. Okay. What I'll say is what really moved us into high gear was in the fall, an executive order on trustworthy AI was released by the president, and it directed NSF and our collaborating agencies to launch a pilot for the NAIRR within 90 days. So we really worked hard. We sprinted through the fall to build and launch a pilot. Now, our goals for this pilot, we were directed to launch the pilot with our existing resources. An executive order does not come with new funding, so we were directed to use our existing resources as well as in-kind contributions. And so our goals here with the pilot are to demonstrate the value and the impact of the NAIRR, to support some new and novel research, and gain experience for this broader concept of the NAIRR, and to really pilot reaching new communities too. The envisioned users of the NAIRR can fall into 3 buckets here. So AI researchers, those researchers, you'd say core AI research, but also domain scientists that are applying AI to their particular field. So think of chemists or biologists, engineers that are using AI methods now to advance their own research. And finally, students and educators. Eligibility for NAIRR resources, as articulated in the pilot, notes that users can come from a wide range of institutions, academic institutions, nonprofits, federal agencies, labs, state, local, tribal agencies, as well as startups and small businesses that have federal grants. We created a number of science thrust areas with our collaborating agencies. These are intended to be really umbrella priority areas for the NAIRR pilot. And those are AI safety and security and privacy, human health, public infrastructure, advanced manufacturing, and earth, environment, and climate challenges. And this, we put together these themes because we know demand will be really overwhelming. And so these are just some initial priority areas. And we hope to expand out from these as we go forward. So let's get a little bit more down to the details of what we're talking about here. What's the architecture of the NAIRR pilot? So we're envisioning and following a lot of what's described in the NAIRR Task Force report. There's a set of users, US-based researchers, and they access resources through a portal. You can go to nairrpilot.org to see kind of a very lean, mean portal that was stood up in a couple months. And then the resources that are federated, these can be agency supercomputing resources, it could be cloud computing resources, it could be data sets, models, collaborations, training, and user support. And then what's really critical to understand here, I think this group probably gets this concept, but we've had a lot of questions when we talk in the public about this, is that the NAIRR pilot is providing the infrastructure. Okay, we are not providing funding for research, such as like their salaries or funding for their students. We're providing access to computing and data resources that researchers request access to. We're organizing the pilot in 4 key thrust areas. The first is NAIRR Open, and NAIRR Open is a lot of what I've been talking about already. So providing the research community access to a distributed set of resources. The second thrust area is NAIRR Secure. NAIRR Secure will be led by the Department of Energy and NIH. And the goal of NAIRR Secure is really to investigate those use cases, best practices, and design patterns for enabling AI research that requires a higher level of security or privacy preserving methods. NAIRR Software is a thrust area that really, I would say, allows us to take a step back and think, what should this ecosystem look like as we think more to that future vision of the NAIRR? Right now, we have contributed resources from many different partners, and so we'll have all sorts of different software stacks, and that's appropriate. That's where we are right now. But as we move to in the future, what would a NAIRR software stack look like? What would a NAIRR container look like? And there's been a lot of interest from universities about this, because maybe they could use that software stack on local or regional resources, and then researchers could graduate as necessary up to the larger scale national resources. We have another last key thrust area is around NAIRR Classroom. And I'll note this area has gotten a lot of attention. When I do talks, I get the most questions out around this area lately. And I think it's just because it's really urgent to get these capabilities and tools into the hands of students. And many instructors and professors have said they have a really hard time just teaching an introductory machine learning class because they simply don't have the computing or resources in hand to do that. And so clearly the pilot's not going to be able to provide access for all students across the classroom, but we want to pilot some new capabilities of providing those resources to classrooms. Something we're emphasizing really strongly in this process is just the importance of community feedback and a community design process. And that's one reason I'm giving a lot of talks, is to hear all of your questions, criticisms, thoughts as we move forward, because we really want to learn during this pilot phase. We don't have a perfect blueprint that we're following. The field is moving really, really quickly. And so it's going to be important that we get a lot of community feedback as this moves out. Okay, so we launched this pilot in January end of January, a couple months ago, and we did so with a number of contributing partners. So there's a list of agencies that are on the left. There's 12 agencies that are contributing to the pilot. The contributions come in the way of computing, for example, from the Department of Energy, platforms from National Institutes of Health, data sets from many different agencies. And then on the right, there's a number of non-governmental or private sector and nonprofit partners as well. All of these partners are making significant in-kind contributions to the pilot. You see some of the largest technology companies there that are providing access to cloud computing credits or hardware. There are also startups too. And the contributions go well beyond compute. And I think this is what's really exciting about NAIRR pilot is the contributions come in the form of collaborations, work with us to train a large language model, API access to closed models, help and support using open models and educational platforms and notebooks. So it's really a wide variety of contributions that are going to be made available to the community. Okay, so we launched this pilot. There was 3 things that were made available immediately. I'm looking at my watch here. The first on the left is we released an RFI. This was a survey of educator and researcher use cases. It's open till the end of the month, which is a couple more days. I would love it if you can help us get your communities to respond. This is part of our community design process, is getting input from a wide range of communities. We were planning to close it March 8th. We kept it open. We were missing a couple regions. So if anyone is on the call from Maine, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, I am missing your states. And I would really, really love to get at least a few responses. I'm going to keep this open until I get a response from all 50 states. The second is we opened up an opportunity for computing access. This is access to DOE and NSF supercomputing capabilities. And this initial call closed March 1st. The demand was really strong. I was expecting, I don't know why I was expecting this, but I was expecting about 30 or so responses, and partly because the responses were coming in pretty slowly at the beginning. We ended up with like 163 responses, and we're in the process, or our awardee is in the process of having those reviewed right now. Also on this NAIRR pilot portal page, there are a number of resources, there's data sets, some training opportunities that are available. So let me note just a little bit more about the response to this first opportunity. There, as I mentioned, there's over 150 requests. The submissions I'm just looking at, as I just saw titles, they're incredibly creative, and I think are going to be demonstrating why this concept of the NAIRR is needed and is so powerful. And we hope to make an announcement here in, I'll say, a few weeks of the first NAIRR pilot researchers that have been able. So that first opportunity was really just to sprint and respond to the executive order. We are planning the second open opportunity that will come at the end of April. And this is what I really want to talk to you all about, as you are the connections to campuses. So this next opportunity it's gonna open, and it's gonna stay open. Okay, so there'll be an announcement of resources that the community can apply to. It's going to include more of our advanced computing systems, access to cloud resources, trained models, collaborations, and you can see kind of a sneak peek of some of the the resources that are going to be coming online at this QR code here. I'm happy to share the slides with you, Dana. So the way we're going to operate this is, I think I'm using a train station analogy. We have a lot of partners and a lot of systems that are going to be coming in. Some systems are going to be retiring out. And so I think like every month or so, we'll announce like the capabilities that are available. And then researchers can apply to those. So there'll be some available in May, and then more will be available in June, a different set will be available in July. And so it'll be this rolling process where researchers can apply. So let me get to this point, how you can help. So I would love your help getting the word out to your community as you're talking to researchers on your campus who are struggling to find AI resources. Let them know that this NAIRR pilot exists and that resources are coming in about a month. The request is pretty simple, okay? It's not an NSF proposal, it's a request for access to resources. And so it's about 3 pages. If you requested resources through the access process, it's very similar. In fact, it's our access team that is managing the NAIRR pilot requests right now. If you're an instructor or you hear from educators, we're going to try to make the mechanism even simpler. So we're still in process there, but we want that to be a really low bar for an instructor to say, you know what, I need 50 Jupyter notebooks for my students. You know, how can I get them, and be able to write a short paragraph. So that's coming here soon. And then, you know, just keep your eye out for NAIRR pilot open opportunities. And of course, I can't announce those before they happen, but what I can note is the ones that are available now. And, you know, the one that is open and available now is our Educate AI initiative. This is broader than the NAIRR. It is a collaboration between the EDU Directorate in NSF and the SCIES Directorate. And the Educate AI is seeking, you know, solicitations or a response to this DCL for K to 12 as well as post-secondary education. The NAIRR portion of this, the NAIRR pilot portion of this is focused on post-secondary education. And so researchers that have an idea here can submit a request. You can also include what type of resources you might need. You can propose to provide resources here as well. And so this is tied to the computing and undergraduate education solicitation. So keep your eye out on this one. I also wanted to note some really early results from our survey. So this is, we were intending to close the survey March 8th. We took kind of a snapshot there, then decided to keep it open a little longer. But what I'm showing here is respondents saying what their most urgent need is and what's their second most urgent need. And so what comes out clearly in the dark blue is that the top need is for computing. That didn't really surprise me. What was also interesting though to me here is it's a minority, but a pretty strong showing here that said their top need was in education and training. And this is where we see that NAIRR classroom thrust really coming on strong here. Then the second place need for the majority of respondents was around data resources and services. So this means majority of people said I need computing, and then I need data and resources, which again doesn't necessarily surprise me. We're going to be going through this survey and pulling out more of the text and concept and the descriptions too. That will give us more context. Okay, I've talked a lot about computing, and part of this is, you know, we were directed to launch this pilot really quickly, and so we went out with what we had in hand, and we have a lot of experience getting computing out to the community. We did it through the HPC COVID-19 consortium. You know, there's a lot of know-how, and so we moved very quickly there. I think Probably an even greater challenge, though, is around the data and networking opportunities as well. And so I won't go through this list. I think you are familiar with the challenges we see in the data space, whether it's the size and the complexity of the data, the quality of the data, how to move and manage the data, how to find what you're looking for. And so we've been thinking in the pilot is, I mean, the pilot is narrow, and as I said, we're doing this with existing resources. How can we take a good step forward here with the resources we have? And so our strategy in the pilot is really to address, and investigate these data challenges through specific use cases and demonstration projects. Okay. Another key emphasis on the pilot is really transparent and responsible AI. And so our goal is to be as transparent as we can with the NAIRR pilot processes. I mean, I think we have to also recognize that this is a really new area, and what kind of operational policies and practices should we have as part of the NAIRR pilot? How should proposals be evaluated? And so something we're going to be doing is really bringing the community together to have these discussions. And so we're not only piloting, getting researchers on the systems, but also piloting what should be the appropriate policies and practices. Okay, I'm coming down to the last couple slides here. I just wanted to show a little bit about our governance structure. So on the upper left, we have a NAIRR pilot steering committee. This is made up of representatives of the different agencies that are contributing resources. There's a smaller yellow box to the side, which is agencies actually that are interested in joining, but maybe haven't taken that step yet. So we meet with them as well. On the right in blue, we have a non-government partner forum. And this is really to facilitate the exchange of information between these partners. There's 25 partners, and so this is a mechanism for where we can communicate with them. We also are forming an advisory subcommittee off of one of our NSF advisory committees. NSF is the administrative home for the pilot. And so the pilot program management office is being led out of NSF. Our vision within NSF, a key cornerstone of our strategy here is the leadership class computing facility, which is anticipated to come online in the 2026 timeframe, and will provide a significant increase in computing and data capabilities for the community. And then finally, there really are no shortages of challenges here. There's challenges, there's technical challenges, there's kind of social and organizational challenges. If you ask me what I am most nervous about, I have the utmost confidence that our community and the broader AI community can tackle the technical challenges. To me, the real challenges are on the two sides here, which is reaching broad communities and onboarding and user support, because I think we know we don't just have a lot of AI experts that are sitting on the sidelines waiting for things to do. They're really busy now, and we need to scale up expertise across the country. We know that reaching new communities is hard, and we know that you just can't give a GPU or a piece of infrastructure to someone and expect that will solve all the problems. It may in some cases, but that infrastructure often has to come with really deep investments in training and user support. So with that, I thank you for your time. It looks like I'm right at the half hour, which is where I wanted to be, and leave us a real good half hour for Q&A. I want to acknowledge all of my colleagues in NSF that are helping with this, as well as we have an allocations working group that is doing a lot of the heavy lifting right now, processing those first set of submissions.
Thank you, Katie, so much. So now everybody gets to ask questions. There's a couple that have already come in through the chat that I can relay. And if you want to add more to the chat or the call doc, or raise your hand if you want to verbalize your question, that's fine. I'll start with the ones that came in while you were talking, Katie. One is NAIRR looking at existing cyber infrastructure like the NRP's Nautilus as a guide or a roadmap?
So we are, as I mentioned, we are, we'll find out our budget here pretty soon, but right now we are using our existing resources. And so I think we will expect to see some of those, more of those existing cyber infrastructure like NRP and other awards come in. We're very, we don't want to take from access to give to the NAIRR. That's not our intention, but as new resources come online, we can determine kind of what fraction will go into access versus versus the NAIRR.
Cool. Thank you. Here's hopefully an easy one. Are there flyers that we could be handing out to people about NAIRR? And
oh, I think we do have some kind of one-pagers. That's a good question. I've been doing a lot of these virtual updates, but I think I think we could probably get some of those out. Yeah.
and we can share them out through the mailing list.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, someone asked, you did cut out for not very long, well, like 30 seconds. And it was during the NAIRR Secure.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I have had a little unstable internet today. So NAIRR Secure, I'll give the spiel again. The NAIRR Secure is going to be led by DOE and NIH, and they're really going to be investigating use cases, best practices, design patterns for AI research that requires a higher level of security or privacy preserving methods.
Great. Folks are welcome to raise their hand if you'd like to do some of the talking and quit listening to me. But I'll continue until then. Are there opportunities to contribute by creating self-directed teaching modules?
Possibly. I mean, right now I would point people to the Educate AI to your colleagues letter for new funding. I think there's a real opportunity for, so let me say, I'm an infrastructure expert and not the kind of the curriculum expert, but I think there's an opportunity to create some networks. So I think many smaller universities, colleges, community colleges, you know, we may not have the instructors or expertise to develop some of this curricula. So I think there is an opportunity for that curricula to be and like platforms to be shared in regions. And so I think that's something we would encourage.
Great, thank you. Next one is, will Access and NAIRR eventually merge or remain parallel tracks?
Yeah, right now, there's different thematic areas. So if you look at well, I think the language from the text first call is still up there, but that had a pretty narrow call area around safe, secure, and trustworthy AI. And so that would, that's really kind of the difference. I think what happens in the future, I think right now we would anticipate those still to be separate and be different focus areas. I would say we're under no illusion that AI research doesn't happen on Access resources already. This is just sort of some of the key focus areas. There's also going to be a broader range of resources available. You know, I think what's really exciting about this call that's coming up in the end of April is requesting access to services, you know, more than compute, but model access, collaborations. And so we could imagine that would be a wider set.
Oh, good. Dr. Atma.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you very much for taking my call. I just wrote a question in the chat also. What is the difference between the thing you mentioned about NAIRR program is only for resources, infrastructure, and not for individual, but at the same time, I'm hearing saying that NAIRR classroom program trust is about for classroom individuals, much more like a or curriculum development to the faculty. So are there
good question. So what's in scope for the NAIRR and the NAIRR pilot, and when we're talking about education, is providing that infrastructure to classrooms. I think what we recognize within NSF is for some people some communities, that's great. Maybe they just want to get some Jupyter notebooks, they're off and running. But we realize for many other communities, it may be much more powerful to couple that infrastructure with the classroom or with a curriculum. And so we're partnering with parts of SIDE outside of the NAIRR to provide that. So you're seeing kind of a bit of an overlap there. I do want to respond to, I've used this analogy in different talks. I didn't use it here, that, the NAIRR is, it is an infrastructure like a telescope is an infrastructure. And so we're providing access to that infrastructure. And I think a telescope, it's nights of observing nights or something like that. We're providing access to computing, to data, to resources, but we're not funding, researchers' salaries or grant times.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so the chat questions are coming in fast and furious. So I'm gonna try to keep going with the chat questions in order, but you will cut ahead of the line if you raise your hand and talk yourself. Trying to incentivize that. So where were we? So let's see, this one is regarding my office mates in the way. Regarding transparent and responsible AI, is there a discussion or a possibility of training a national transparent open model?
I think there is an opportunity, and we would welcome kind of the community to apply for resources at that scale, right? There's certain communities that I think are doing that, but this is why we're putting the NAIRR out there, is so that the creativity of the research community can apply and use these resources. I see one question about GPUs. Maybe I can jump on that
Sure,
one.
please.
So so we have contributions. So we have GPUs that are part of the NSF supercomputing infrastructure. There's GPUs that are part of DOE's supercomputing infrastructure. We also got contributions in $20 million worth of credits from Microsoft Azure, 30 million in equivalent capability from NVIDIA's hosted systems. So we'll have a large range of GPUs available. They're coming in different units, right? There's B100s, there's A100s, there's H100s, there's GPUs from different non-NVIDIA companies too. I did some normalization and came out with, that we will, by this summer, have access to 30 to 40 million A100 GPU hours. So, depending on what you're doing, I think if training the largest models will still strain that, but for the majority of researchers, that is a huge amount of capability that we have, and this is in part due to strong contributions of some partners.
Thanks, Katie. Okay, we do have a hand up, Michael.
Hi. So regarding transparency and responsibility again, given the list of non-governmental partners that might have their own ideas about the direction of AI, is there any notion of like what sort of I guess, safeguards or guarantees of, keeping that transparency and responsibility might be?
Yeah, a couple things here is, so these non-governmental partners, nonprofits, private industries, they've made in-kind contributions, meaning they're contributing something to the research community. What we really want to be transparent about is during the review and access process. We want to be clear with the research community, who will be seeing their submission, who won't be, as we go forward. So I don't know if that answered your question, but if you are applying for agency resources, those will be viewed and by agency people. All the submissions are going to be technically reviewed by not including any of the partners, but there is a matching process. And I think that's important because some of the architectures fit better for certain science use cases. So we're going to be really transparent with who can see what submission. I don't know if that was quite your angle, but that's
Yeah, some of it. So thank you.
Great. And Katie, if you see questions in the chat that you would like to prioritize, that's also wonderful.
Okay. Yeah, you go ahead and keep just jumping out. I should have brought one or two people from OAC. I didn't realize it was such a good crew. We've been doing these. People would write questions here too.
Okay, let's see. And also again to the community, if you want to chime in, please go ahead. We've been pasting the questions into the call doc so they're easier to track. Let's see. We did that one. We didn't do this one yet.
Let me
at a number of, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. There you go.
At a number of institutions, IT staff are tasked with the following rapidly evolving AI landscape, and in some cases, build and manage AI environments for their campuses. Is there a role for these staff, I assume, in NAIRR?
Oh, okay. So let me talk about the there's probably a couple ways I can answer this. First, we're in a really limited pilot phase right now. So I've had so much interest from campuses on how they might connect up. And right now we're connecting up kind of some of the national scale resources. I do think it's really critical that at university levels, at regional levels, people start to organize. And we've seen some states already kind of create their own, I don't know, NAIRR-like state consortiums, and this could be useful because it's really hard for NSF to engage with 4,000 different universities, but when we have organizations like CaRC, we can do this much more easily. I mean, I think if I can note, if the NAIRR is there's funding for the NAIRR, then NSF will put out solicitations as we always do, and then there can be opportunities there.
Okay. Did you have one you wanted, or
yeah, there was one about social scientists. So there's a couple. This is a good question. So social sciences are envisioned to be potential users of the NAIRR as well, and so that's something that is important to note. We're also we're working on a concept for a workshop with NIST and NIH and NSF on how the pilot can support trustworthy AI. And I think we'll absolutely have some AI safety social scientists contributing there. And I think it is going to be really important that it's not just engineers and that are designing the NAIRR, that we're really thinking about the ethical issues, safety, the use cases. And so, yes, I would expect we would be bringing in, and already are bringing in, social scientists.
Hey, I see people are +1ing some of these. So there's one with a +5.
Oh,
I don't think this has been asked yet. Is there a plan to share lessons learned with the wider community? We're seeing indications that the latest GPU isn't always the best GPU for different types of AI ML jobs. Since H100s are very expensive, I would like to understand when it makes sense to purchase older GPUs.
Oh, interesting question. Yeah, I mean, I think about the NAIRR as connecting and enabling the research community to access a distributed set of resources. But I absolutely expect that we will be gathering lessons learned that we can take to the vision of the full NAIRR. Some of those specific technical questions might be, better aimed at some of our resource providers. Yeah, I know some of these GPUs are huge, right? And so you may need only a kind of a fraction of them. We're also seeing where, a lot of educational and classroom exercises work just fine on CPUs. And so we're going to have limited budget regardless, and we want to make sure that we're mapping the architectures and the technologies to the appropriate use cases. I'll just know from my experience, I think buying old hardware isn't always the best tactic, because you can get into deprecated software very, very quickly. But buying a less powerful, technology, or one that matches your use case can be the right decision.
Great. Jacob.
Yeah, so this is just sharing my idea on the use cases for AI, especially as far as GPU goes. So we have all these resource providers, and they do have GPUs, and they do have people running jobs on the GPUs. It would be great to have some sort of requirement to collect some of the data as far as performance goes, to then share with the community. Because my impression is that the GPU performance most of the time advertised is mainly targeted at enterprise folks. And then universities just look at it without actually thinking about how the GPUs are being used at their university side or the HPC side as well. So it would be very helpful for the community if performance data are collected for some of the jobs that have been run, and then maybe some work done to organize and share, because not everybody is an expert in performance analysis.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. I really resonate with that, because I think we have to turn to thinking about price performance. So sometimes maybe a certain technology can be faster, but if it's 3 times as expensive, then you're not making the overall best choice for the community. And so I think people see, oh yeah, my code goes faster on this new technology, but is it the right choice given the price? And that I think is getting to some of your points about what is the performance? Do you need that really powerful architecture? Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, well, I'm going to make an executive decision to ask this question next, is how does NAIRR plan to leverage all these communities of CI or RCD professionals, such as CARC People Network, Campus Champions, and many, many multitudes of sister communities?
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to come to this call, is to get your ideas as well. I mean, you've heard kind of about the program. I think we would certainly love and welcome your help and your deep engagements with your campuses and getting the word out. But I mean, what I would turn it back and say, and Dana, maybe we can follow up, or if you guys have a follow-up meeting, is what are the ways in which you could envision, collaborating with the NAIRR? I mean, it's really an emphasis in the NAIRR is to reach new communities. There are some universities that they can probably afford to purchase their own infrastructure, but there's many that cannot. And we really want to reach these new communities, these new potential researchers, And so I think we're absolutely going to need to work with communities like CARC and others if we're going to scale our reach. I mean, there's just no way that NSF can reach these communities without kind of these network organizations like CARC.
Cool. So what I'm hearing is everybody on the call, there's the challenge to us is to help Katie know how we can help as a community. So I don't know if that would be something along forming some, another kind of interest group or something that keeps close tabs on what NAIRR's doing and what the community needs out of it from the CI professional community, but we can continue that discussion.
Yeah, I would love to get that back from you if you guys have a chance to talk amongst yourselves.
Sure. Yeah. And yeah, if you want to direct your feedback, your ideas on that in the call doc or to me or Daphne or Tim or anyone else or Jacob, please do. And we can make something happen. Back to the questions. Let's see. Where did I leave off? Does anyone remember? Does anyone have one that they would like to bring up next?
So my question was very similar to Jason's, and his got more likes. So, but I want to ask it in a slightly different way. It kind of straddles the difference between hardware and software here. We are experiencing a huge wave of people trying to learn this technology. It's like what we do all the time with conventional computing, but faster in this sense of everybody repeating the same mistakes at once. So it's very similar to Jason's question about sharing lessons learned, but I think there's kind of a critical need to have some early eyes on these pilot projects to say, oh, look, these are the mistakes we see people making, or let's say inefficiencies, and quickly putting out a best way to use the NAIRR document. So that's my suggestion and question.
Yeah, I mean, I think one opportunity we have with the NAIRR that is really exciting to me is to create kind of a national community of users, and one that goes beyond NSF, right? It's funding doesn't, science doesn't follow these funding agency boundaries, and I think there's a real opportunity to create some new communities around AI researchers that are investigating and using AI for the public good. And I do think we're going to have to figure out these best practices. Some of the architectures are very different, right? There's kind of testbed architectures, there's cloud architectures. And so I think the stress there is what is architecture or system based and what could be across, the broader, applies to all NAIRR users. But I'd welcome other thoughts on that. I did see a question in here. I'm going to stay till the very end here, but someone says, what infrastructure resources can a university ask for other than a GPU? Can you give some examples? Yes, and I would go to that NSF page that has all the contributions. So you'll be able to request like notebook access. Now you could say that's a Jupyter access too, but that's fine. You're going to be able to request like API access to trained models that you might want to do fine tuning on. You'll be able to access or request access to like Hugging Face spaces, Hugging Face spaces, if that's in your area of research. You may be able to access or request a collaboration with one of the nonprofits on how to train a large model. And I think what they're providing is so exciting. Typically, if someone wants to learn how to train a large language model, they need to go do an internship at one of the big technology companies, and this nonprofit is kind of offering to partner with a research community. So there's some really kind of creative and I think interesting resources that are going to be made available to to the community. So I say, with so many industry leaders donating, will that make it challenging to remain responsible and ethically fair? I mean, I think what I'll note is they're providing access to resources. The science or submissions that the researchers want to do will use those resources. And so I think that's a difference. You know, if you're on Microsoft Azure or you're on using the NVIDIA resources, you'll be kind of a user of those resources with your own research project. Any others?
There's a few. I think we can have time for maybe one more.
Can you help us understand how much hair splitting might go on related to a project that applies for access but falls somewhere more into deep learning? Okay, yeah. So right now, I think if you're applying to NAIRR, there's going to be particular criteria. And so there's going to be kind of some different focus areas than the really broader NSF access open opportunity. And so I would just point people to that right now.
Great. I think this has been fantastic. Katie, thank you so much for coming. I know there's probably many more questions that we could go through, but I know everyone has things they need to get to. So thanks everyone for coming. We'll get the recording posted to YouTube and slides. Katie, if you'll send those to me, I will link them. I'll put them in the Google folder for folks to see.
Yeah.
And do you have any last words, Katie?
No, this was fantastic. I really appreciate the questions and feedback, and I really would, Dana, like to hear kind of if you guys have a chance to digest this in some future meeting, and what what the CARC community could how we could partner here.
Absolutely. Terrific. Thank you all for coming, and we'll meet back up again and have more of these discussions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Bye.